Hello, everybody. Good afternoon and welcome to the Australian Journal for Environmental Education special issue launch for Critical Forest Studies, Seeding a New Field from Underground to Overstory. This wonderful event today is held on Earth Day, which is an excellent way to celebrate and take a moment to reflect on our relationships, our responsibilities leading to regenerative futures. My name is Peter White. I'm the AJEE Editor-in-Chief, and it's my great pleasure today to share our AJEE Acknowledgement of Country. The Australian Journal for Environmental Education acknowledges First Nations peoples across the globe as the traditional custodians of the lands, skies, and waterways on which we come to gather today. We respect Indigenous scholars and encourage and value their contribution in our journal and participation in our community. We honour Australian Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the first educators and caretakers whose deep knowledge and connection to country continues to guide us in our lives and work. We pay our deep respects to elders past, present, and to emerging leaders across the continent. We acknowledge that country is a teacher who shares generously so we all may learn. As we gather to connect, learn, share, may we each listen deeply to and with country and awaken our shared responsibility to care for it and for each other now and in the future. So today we're celebrating a special issue in the Australian Journal for Environmental Education. I'm going to pop some links in the chat, although I'm confident that many of you are familiar with our journal, but the first link takes you to our homepage. I'd like to acknowledge the AJEE editorial board and executive. We thank them for their voluntary commitment to our community and to journal practices. Our journal is 42 years old. It's one of the oldest journals in the field. Fabulous timing to have you come on board, Annette. Thank you. Thanks for being here today. We acknowledge our host organisation, the Australian Association for Environmental Education, celebrating 47 years in existence. And you can see more about AJEE and A squared E squared, we love our acronyms, and what's going on in their website. And it's a very exciting year in A squared E squared. We also acknowledge our publisher, Cambridge University Press. AJEE is a gold open access journal leading our field in these challenging times through education. We publish 5 issues a year with open access. We host special issues like the one we're celebrating today with open calls. If you're interested in providing that kind of leadership to our field, please be in touch. We also publish special focus issues or articles that curate an invited set around a specific set of articles. We publish thesis synopses that introduce new researchers to our community and also report synopses that outline important contributions. We also publish reviews of literature, film, art, etc., as they also showcase important works across our field. But today we're launching a special issue, Critical Forest Studies, Seeding a New Field from Underground to Overstory. Thank you very much, David. I'm ready for the next slide, I think. Perfect. Because this is the time where I would love to invite you to spend some time in our collection. And I'd also like to acknowledge the co-guest editors who are presented to you on the screen here. So we have David, Cher, John, Mark, Sarah, Jelena, and Gideon. And today, this fantastic team is going to take you through a whirlwind tour of almost half of this incredibly large and very special issue. So there's a launch happening in place as well as this online event. I'd like to shout out especially to David Rousell for leading this team and this adventure really well. David has been a great contributor to AJEE, including being an associate editor for a long time. So David, thank you for your leadership, your voluntary efforts. They are greatly appreciated. And to the guest editorial team, thank you for your efforts. It has been a very big job. It is, as I said, the biggest issue we've had so far. So we're really looking forward to an incredible opportunity to see just, as I said, almost half. We've curated these videos into our AJEE YouTube channel, and you can peruse them at your leisure via our playlist. So, David, over to you and team, and thank you again.
Thanks so much, Peter. Thank you for the acknowledgement. Also acknowledging that we are gathering here, acknowledging that we are on unceded Wurundjeri and Bunurong country, and that we pay respect to elders and ancestors, past and present, for their ongoing custodianship of the lands, airs, and waters, and forests in which we gather and work and live. And also extending that acknowledgement to Indigenous and First Nations people joining us today, and also online. So it's really amazing, I think, to have this opportunity to connect from place to place. And I think this is what critical forest studies and the work we've done on the special issues is all about, connecting place-based scholarship and across different cultures, different geographies. I think over 15 different countries are represented in the special issue, and we'll be able to kind of take that journey a little bit today through a series of films that have been shared by authors and co-authors of articles in the collection. So I think just even in the ones we've selected of videos today will be different country across Australia, as well as Indonesia, different parts of Europe, Canada, so different territories, different areas, and places where this amazing range of relational work forests is being carried out and being shared beautifully through the journal as well. So what we're going to do is kind of work through each of the 4 sections, and we've just selected a couple of films that are in each of those sections, and then we'll have a little bit of time just to pause between sections for response, either in person or through the Zoom. And I might hand over to my colleague visiting from Canada, Cher, who might say a little bit about the collaboratory that's also brought us all together.
Amazing. Well, I'd like to offer a really warm welcome on behalf of the Critical Forest Studies Collaboratory. If you're not already a member, we certainly invite you to join us. So we are an international group of researchers, educators, activists, and artists who are engaging in relational and restorative ways with forests. We host ongoing events, seminars, and symposiums, and at the very center of our work is the Digital Planting web space, which features diverse pedagogical, creative, and inquiry practices with forests around the world. So the special edition really grew out of that digital seeding, and you'll see that the 4 sections of the special edition come from those areas that were really represented in the digital seeding web platform. Thank you.
So the first section that we're going to share some videos from is around forest sentience. So this was really kind of one of the first areas that I think we got really excited about in terms of pitching the special issue. Really thinking about what it means to research and think and work with forests in terms of the incredible, extraordinary diversity of intelligences that are active, including botanical or vegetal forms of sentience, mycelial, fungal, different forms of animal intelligence, and the kind of notion of the forest as an orchestration of different forms of relational sentience that we as humans form a part, but are not exclusive knowers of. In fact, there are kind of these many opaque relationships that form this kind of sentient forest across different geographies and cultures. So we'll share a couple of films from this section and then have a moment for response. And this one, we just have to. This is from Len Collard, Sandra Woolturton, and Louisa Sedgwick. And this one is actually from the ABC, this video.
Hey, my name's Len Collard. I'm a Wajak Noongar of the place that people might refer to as the Perth metropolitan area. It's always involved in the sense of country, the appreciation, the understanding and the meaning and the connection to country through place names, and so deconstructing the ancient codes of the place names in the Noongar Budja. You know, basically documenting and publishing and researching around Noongar, the Budja country. Murangin, the families and the extended families, and the courage and the knowledge were three important tenets that kind of helped me to evolve my academic capacity. Kart means bow. The first word kart means hill or head or above. Jenang means to look, and bow means afar, so the hill or the mountain to look afar. And without going to say, I think a lot of people might know it better as a place called Kings Park. But we Noongar Wajak British know what its name is, and Kart Jenang bow really reflects the essence of it. Go up on top of what you might know as Kings Park, and if you can see a long way, then you understand why the Noongar's called a Kart Jenang bow. There's over 5,000 place names of Noongar origin scattered on the sides of the roads, inscribed on the signposts right across Noongar country. And over 50 or 100,000 of years of human occupation. I mean, you know, what didn't they do it in and around Kings Park? I mean, in a sense, that's why, you know, once the colonials got here, they realised what was good for Noongars would be good for others, and so it's no surprise to me that they built what we see as the modern capital city of Perth on the old capital city, I guess, if we want to use that way, that the Noongars had, built upon the foundations of ancient infrastructure. So when we dig into the deep roots of understanding the country and closing the gap of our cultural understanding as a nation state, I think place names is one of those discourses, it's one of those journeys that all Australians are excited to be involved in.
Do you have dreams? Not just the ones you have when you sleep, but also a medium by which non-human places, entities, and spirit communicate with humans. In central Kalimantan, dreams are beyond sleeping. They are tied to land, forests, and other entities. My name is Cory Antang. I'm a PhD student at RMIT University in Australia. I'm studying ecolinguistics, specifically in the Dayak Ngaju language, one of the indigenous languages of Central Kalimantan in Indonesia. I chose to focus on the Dayak Ngaju language because it carries vital ecological knowledge and reflects the deep relationship between the Dayak Ngaju people, who live on tropical peatlands in Central Kalimantan, and their environment. The problem framing for this research centers on the catastrophic degradation of tropical peatland forests in Central Kalimantan, which has transformed a vital carbon sequestration region into a major global source of greenhouse gases. This environmental crisis is driven by factors such as the failed mega-rise project, canal drainage, and oil palm expansion, leading to significant losses of carbon storage capacity. In the paper that I wrote together with my supervisory team, Regenerating the Peatland Forests of Kalimantan through the Dayak Ngaju language, New Animism, Ecolinguistic, and the Naming of Worlds, it's explore how the Dayak Ngaju language and its animistic worldviews are essential for regenerating the tropical peatland forests of Central Kalimantan, and they foster a relational ontology where humans, spirits, and non-human entities communicate. This paper explores a vital question: How can the regeneration of tropical peatland forests in central Kalimantan be achieved through the Dayak Ngaju language? The research focus bridged two key frameworks, ecolinguistics and new animism. It investigates how the Dayak Ngaju language shapes a relational ontology, where human, spirits, and the forest exist in a shared, sentient community. A major component of the study is the role of dreams, or nupi, which act as a medium for non-human entities to communicate with humans, leading to the creation of sacred shrine and ritual boundaries. Ultimately, the research frames the revitalization of these animistic protocols as a form of political resistance. It argues that restoring the peatlands is inseparable from restoring the language and spiritual practices that have governed those forests for generations, offering a regenerative path that challenges extractive colonial systems. This research employs an indigenous frame ethnography led by me as a member of the Dayak Ngaju community. This method intentionally decolonizes the study by treating storytelling as story work, a form of theory that centers indigenous voices and respects their knowledge system as equal as to academic science. The study involved extended ecolinguistic fieldwork in 3 villages, where I collected key Dayak Ngaju terms and analyzed them as active ecological practices rather than mere data. These findings were then refined through collaborative interpretation sessions with community members to ensure the meaning were guided by local cosmologies rather than imposed from the outside. By integrating a multidisciplinary supervisory team as community of practice, the research bridged environmental science with new animism philosophies. Ultimately, the methodology relies on relational accountability, positioning the forest, its spirits, and humans as mutual educational partners in the research journey. This research matters because it proves that we cannot restore the peatlands, one of the world's most critical carbon sinks, using only Western knowledge. It reveals that the Dayak Ngaju language is a vital vessel for ecological wisdom and spiritual protocols, which are essential for forest health. Also, by centering animism, the study acts as a political resistance against extractive capitalism, arguing that true regeneration requires treating the land as kinfolks rather than a commodity. So, do you have dreams?
Hi, I'm Rachel, and here I am in Serinda, Sweden at the regenerative forestry project 2 Oaks, 2 Eker. Despite its diverse community of critters, this is unfortunately a dying forest. Like many of the forests in Sweden, it is made up of a monoculture of spruce trees that were planted for industrial purposes. As a result, it has become vulnerable to the bark beetle. Nevertheless, the forest is protected by the Swedish National Forestry Agency because it contains a rare species of black fungi, the fjallig tagsvamp. That means that it is forbidden by law to cut down any of the dead trees that overwhelm this forest and its ecosystem. For me, this forest epitomizes the crossroads between human society and nature, which has generated critical forest studies. Every move we make or environmental policy we enact triggers chain reactions that lead to unknown futures, because we are engaging with sentient forces whose knowledge systems and priorities are not the same as our own. Even well-meaning intentions can paralyze an ecosystem. This realization demonstrates how little we know and how much we have to discover. My role in this practical reality here, alongside my partner, is to speed up the cycle of death in the forest so new life can emerge. That can be as simple as taking a walk through it, because our footsteps help to break down fallen material. According to Nordic myth, the earth is the body of a giant god. Sometimes I wonder if we human beings are not the bacteria in their gut. This myth, that systems are animate and deified, reappears across history, culture, religion, and philosophy. It describes our deep intuition that everything is somehow connected. For me, this is the intuition behind regenerative forestry and critical forest studies. It is the intuition behind my essay, Lucky Aesthetics, which phenomenalizes this interrelation as luck. I suggest lucky signs are the gateways between orders of experience, species, and temporality. In effect, a lucky sign is something which has beyond human meaning. In this sense, the forest is abundant with lucky signs. This lucky view of signs generates a theory of art that is defined by beyond human experience and capable of regenerating reality by changing its center. I want to introduce lucky aesthetics by considering the wind, and most specifically the term windfall. To receive a windfall is to receive a fortune unexpectedly, perhaps through inheritance, stocks, or the lottery. However, the term comes from an older experience of harvesting fruits from the ground that had fallen from a tree because of the wind. The notion of a windfall encapsulates the main argument behind lucky aesthetics, that our cultural systems are defined by the food chain and the beyond human forces that move it, which we experience as luck, good or bad. In closing, I invite you to imagine that the wind is a force of difference that carries beyond human intersubjectivity as breath. It moves invisibly through our forests and systems, animating them with what we do not know, but can nevertheless feel. Thank you for listening.
Hello and good afternoon from here in Rovaniemi, the capital of Finnish Lapland in Northern Europe. I'm Dr. Francis Joy and I'm one of the authors of the paper Sensing, Speaking, Remembering, Arboreal Sentience and Tree-Human Communications in Northern Finland, which was published in the Australian Journal of Environmental Education. The paper was published together with my colleague, Professor John Ryan from the US. It was published in December 2025, which we were very, very happy and grateful about. Our project, which is outlined in the paper, is called Gifts from the Sentient Forest, which was a 2-year research project funded by the Kony Foundation from here in Finland about a response that we had to the decimation of old forests and trees in urban areas, particularly around Rovaniemi here, the capital city. The way that we outlined and structured the project means that it was characterised by 4 2-day retreats, which took place in further north from here in Akaslompolo and in Pyhätunturi, where the old pine and spruce forests still to some extent remain intact. And as part of that work, we put together a cohort of 15 different people, myself and John included, people who were poets, artists, storytellers, educators, dancers, singers, and ritual specialists, some very talented and gifted people. And we explored the different dimensions to what is known as sentience, which is approaching trees and forests in different ways from different perspectives, using different methods as a way to open up communication based on the premise that trees can feel, see, hear, remember, and intervene in different ways. the data that we collected was really quite unique in many ways, and you can find an explanation and you can find insight and information about that in the paper that was published. Some of the ritual work that was done, and also an approach that I use, which was called working with pareidolia, which is encountering different faces and forms in nature that can be so inspirational that they can open up doorways and communication into other dimensions of reality. So what we collected was brought together through an exhibition in June, between June and August in 2025 at a place called Villa Vincoli here in Rovaniemi, where we exhibited the work of the cohort of the group, and we received visitors, around 225 in that time, which was fantastic. What came from the research in terms of our aims and what we achieved was to put forward to policymakers and also councils and municipalities an invitation for them to give more consideration to understanding forest sentience and working with trees sentiently as conservation values, other than how trees are predominantly seen in terms of their economic worth. So we plan to continue this work. We're hoping we can find more support for what we're doing between 2026 and 2028, so we can furthermore investigate more different expressions and encounters of sentience, and we'll be in touch about that depending on how it goes. But we're grateful to be able to present our work, and we're grateful for the publication, and we hope to see you soon. Bye for now.
Congratulations for critical forest studies. My name
this one. So we might just pause there before we move on to forest imaginaries, and just have a little bit of time, like a brief moment for response, either online or in person. Any thoughts from the online group?
We have nothing in the chat, David, but perhaps there's a
Okay.
there's a question. I don't notice any hands at the moment.
Digesting, yeah. There's a 4 pretty interesting films. Yeah.
It's good to see that interdisciplinary groups. So, scientists mixing with a whole range of other disciplines, and I think that's a lovely way of. Sure. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. Interesting to see the Indonesian work, and it's really good.
David, Jane has made a comment. Jane, would you like to speak to it? I could read it if you prefer.
Yeah, I'm happy to speak to it. I just thought, I loved all of those presentations, but I think that connection between language and connection between the human and the non-human is so important. And it was a point made by one of the people involved in the carbon dating project that Keith also was a director of. So yeah, that's all I want. It was the guy up north in Cape York in Australia was talking about the importance of recovering Indigenous language to recover that relationality that's missing in the way Western people look at nature. So I think that the Kalimantan paper really is a wonderful reinforcement of that point. Thank you.
Well, in the interest of time, we might continue on to forest imaginaries, because we do have quite a number of videos to share. So I might hand over to Jelena to introduce that section.
Thank you. So in this section, we are exploring how the insights from the critical forest studies are kind of translated into engagement with the public through creative and arts methods. We have artists and designers and creative writers engaging with art methods and also in the range of scientific and philosophical approaches to critical forest studies. So some of the authors are exploring relational dynamic with forest sentience, with care, our relationship with like broader forest ecosystems, and how we can engage publics through that. So we're going to present 3 videos. 3 videos from Cher, David and Carmen, David and me, Giselle and Blendline, and Keith Armstrong.
Hi, Keith Armstrong here. Forest art intelligence is a living experiment in co-creating pathways between experimental arts, ecological science and traditional ecological knowledges. The core idea of the project was to develop organic experimental artworks that we called art intelligences that we would place within a recovering forest. And as those works integrated, decomposed and reformed as time went on, they would actually benefit the health of that site. So you could say that these were artworks made for the forest.
The Forest Art Intelligence Project provides this really unique opportunity to bring together 2 very different disciplines of art on one hand and science on the other, and use the lenses of these different disciplines to translate the innate intelligence of an ecosystem and the regrowth of that ecosystem into a different form.
So the purpose of this paper was to explore the potential of contemporary art when aligned with ecological science to reframe the forest's regeneration as a site of aesthetic and ethical inquiry. So we sort of looked at the forest as a primary composer within artistic and ecological frameworks, and then we asked, how might this approach underpin a novel form of critical forest pedagogy? Now, a pedagogy that's capable of deepening our understanding of the collective natural intelligence of the living world, and of course encouraging long-term conservation. So that's the central aim of the paper, and now I'd just like to uncover some more of the background so you can see where we've got up to and the context within which we're working. We start off here with just an idea of the site for the artwork. This is Sanford Ecological Research Facility, or SERF. I want to give you an idea of the existing forests and some of the slash paddocks that surround the forest. Now in 2023 we negotiated to have 2 hectares assigned as a site for a new kind of artwork, which would also end up regrowing the original forest that had likely been cleared during colonial settlement.
The idea would be to move from this sort of modified pasture into something resembling what existed here pre-clearing.
It was like 2?
Yeah,
3?
2.
So we established a series of art intelligences in the first stage. Some were ready-made, just already on the site, but others were installed, like this 1.5 ton blue gum log, which became one of our key sites. So now these art intelligence sites become the focal places in the forest that we want to bring audiences to, and then set up the conditions that allow them to appreciate the incredible natural intelligence that's evolving and changing each site. So we want to engage in an on-site guided multi-sensory art event. And that will then ultimately lead to the development of 6 new artworks that could be suitable for off-site touring. After a series of consultations over the past year, we're thrilled that Jimmy Southwood and his organisation Creative Conversations and Creative Nations will be able to join us for the next stage of this project. Now, this will ensure that tech, traditional ecological knowledges deeply inform the future developments on the site, how the art intelligences evolve, and of course the on-site multisensory events, whilst also ensuring that these knowledges are distinct, respected and unappropriated. So these are the conditions that we feel allow us to propose this new model of critical forest pedagogy, something of course which we go into a lot more detail in the paper, and I encourage you to read it after watching this. We sense that FAI offers a vision of intelligence that's quite different from the extractive version that's driving ecological collapse, and interestingly, of course, Gen AI development. So FAI offers an opportunity to encounter a profoundly different model of intelligence through an art that's grounded in human nature interdependence. Hi, Keith Armstrong here.
Heart Song, created by a group of teenagers who spent a day on the mountain. After their time in their quiet ways, alone, traveled down the mountain to gather together again to create this, the Heart Song. Circle, and we are all together. A stone drops into the water, the ripples last forever. My traditional name is Lizard Warrior. My family and ancestors have called this place home for approximately 9,000 years. The one greatest grounding moment in my time is connected to Chape, the cedar. And within this connection to forest, to story and practice, emerged a kind and generous man. And the intention to enter into a forest means that I must recognize the species, the animals, the land, and the earth that I have grown with. The relationship and the action and the behavior to be kind, to act generous, has taken many forms in my life, both in traditional and contemporary art practices, is evolved through this legend, through this story.
My name is Cher Hill, and I have a very different ancestral relationship to forests. My grandfather came to these unsurrendered territories, members of the Coast Salish nations, from Finland about 100 years ago, and took up work as a logger, cutting down old growth trees. Together with our colleagues Jelena, Aleksic, and David Rousell, we have created this offering in terms of our paper, Ecologizing the Research Image, Methods of Knowledge Creation with Forestscapes, which we're so delighted to share with you through the Australian Journal of Environmental Education. So critical forest studies really involves thinking differently about the way that we engage in research as environmental educators and environmental researchers. So our work has largely been around disrupting the colonial logics that are centered within a lot of Western environmental education research. So in our project, we've been experimenting with with the use of different machine technologies such as drone footage, thermal camera imaging, and spectrograms, used and interpreted in collaboration with Indigenous story and Indigenous art, to be able to understand forests in a much more expansive way and to really ecologize ourselves within forestscapes.
My life is a circle, and we are all together. A stone drops into the water, the
Yeah, any responses, questions, impressions?
I think one of my impressions is how, so there were a couple of videos there of the art science collaboration. And I think my immediate impression is kind of actually just a little bit of awe of how a different lens actually would see something different. Like I see an image of a database that helps translate science, and somebody else sees it as art, and then it's like that is something that I've never quite, like seen at that. And then yeah, they like highlight the importance of bringing multiple people that see differently and can help these.
Yeah. What about the online people who joined? Any questions?
We have nothing in the chat so far, Jelena.
Okay. Also, we can leave questions, impressions in the chat for later. Doesn't have to be now. It's a lot of videos and it feels like a lot of videos. So yeah, it takes time to digest. So
I was wondering how you went about engaging with the Indigenous person there in the forest, and was that with your personal relationship, or did you seek out a person, or did you involve the whole community, or how did that unfold?
Yeah, so you saw Carmen McKay in the video, and I don't know if Carmen is online today from Edmonton, Canada, Treaty 6 territories. But Carmen and I have had a long-standing research and pedagogical practice working collaboratively in schools, and also with other elders and school children to enact different ways of understanding the lands we're on through art. And so this was an extension of that work that we were so fortunate to involve David and Jelena in this work. And yeah, so I'm not sure if that answers your question. Yeah.
I guess an extension of that, which we can go into afterwards if that's not appropriate, David, is acknowledging that Canada has embraced under United Nations rights of Indigenous people into its law, and Australia refuses to, and wondering how that enables more research with more relevant research with Indigenous people. But I'm not sure if you come across that in your day-to-day life in research.
Yeah, great question. Carmen could talk more about data sovereignty, Indigenous data sovereignty. But in terms of the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People, it's very fragile in Canada right now, particularly on the West Coast. Very fragile.
Right, thank you for the question, Gideon. Thank you.
So I think we'll have to move on to the next section. So we have forest regeneration. So Cher, over to you.
Thank you. So the section on forest regeneration really is contributing new understandings of how forest stewardship and rewilding are theorized and practiced. And this is a really exciting section of the research because it's where there's an intersection between scholarship, activism, and action.
No mahara mai, pika mahara mai, ki te waka haura o te ngahere. Mobilising for action, forest health in Aotearoa. Kia ora koutou, I'm Mark Harvey, and our article was written by me with Marie McGinty and Molly Mullen. The situation for us in Aotearoa is that we have forest pathogens at the moment. Kauri dieback that is killing kauri, and myrtle rust that is killing a number of species in our forests, including Buutakawa. We have come to this paper engaging with the human dimensions of these forest pathogens because Western science alone is not enough to engage with this. And we've also come to this paper engaging with artistic research-based approaches. We begin with Te Tiriti o Waitangi in our country, and it basically means that Māori retain sovereignty but in partnership with the Crown in Aotearoa. In the forest ecology area, it definitely hasn't been honoured often until recently. Recognising this, our previous government created Ngā Rako Taketake, focusing on human dimensions and science dimensions of forest health and kauri dieback and myrtle rust. And under this, Mobilising for Action was one of the projects, a transdisciplinary project involving Māori and non-Māori in partnership, and it involved co-design, involved a range of different disciplines, social scientists, mātauranga Māori, Māori knowledge specialists, artists, journalists, scientists, ecologists, community, iwi hapu, Māori communities and schools, amongst others. A driving aspect for us was our research framework, which we developed in consultation and guidance of a kaumātua, an elder from a northern iwi, Ngāti Wai, Hori Parata. The waka haurua is a double hull waka, as a metaphor for partnership between Māori and non-Māori towards addressing a goal. On the one side, we've got mātauranga Māori, which means Māori knowledge. And on the other side is Western knowledge. And in the middle is this concept of whakapono, which means to bring everything together. We came up with several projects. The first one is Toi Tu Te Ngahere, which is a project where we engaged with 5 schools around the Auckland and wider regions. We looked at how the arts could be used as a catalyst to empower school students around these themes of kauri dieback and myrtle rust. And we also brought in mātauranga Māori, guidance from mana whenua, local iwi tribes. One of our schools was Kauri Park, and at Kauri Park School, the students and the staff were very alienated by not being involved in the decision making behind why their local forest park was closed off because of kauri dieback. So the students and us, after doing arts projects for nearly a year, bringing in scientists and various others, the students and staff expressed that they felt alienated around why their park was closed. So we brought in local council staff responsible for some of the decision making, had them all sitting around together with us. Each other heard each other's concerns and together brainstormed around how we could address the situation. One example of one of their areas of signage was a container that they have created around their school to help educate families and locals around why that park is closed off. The next project was Toitao Whakatairanga. And Toitao Whakatairanga, we curated 9 Māori artists around these themes to engage with their communities and the wider public and to see what Māori knowledge could bring in. The arts are not separate from other forms of knowledge in Te Ao Māori. They're integrated. One example of a project was Tania Ruka. She had her mother create karakia, which is a blessing for myrtle rust. And the karakia invites myrtle rust to go where it needs to go to find its place. In Te Ao Māori, we don't necessarily exclude everything. We find places for living things. Everything belongs somewhere. And that led to a whole lot of projects like video game, a graphic novel made by Arahau Novak, and various other things. Those are some examples of Mobilising for Action. From our findings, Mobilising for Action's projects have contributed to increased reciprocal relations between humans and more than human communities, as well as deeper understandings of mātauranga Māori and related practices. They've catalysed passion and commitment, empowering community members to care for forests, enhancing embodied and spiritual interconnectedness, supporting Māori self-determination and autonomy, and advancing epistemic justice for all beings. Kia ora everybody, and thank you for listening and watching.
Wanyanalum. Welcome in our local Cubby Cubby Gubby Gubby language. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge elders past and present and acknowledge their connection to the bunya tree throughout deep time. Myself, Robin Fox, along with Karen Shaw, Spencer Shaw, Auntie Zetha, Mita Harris, Pierre, Rachel and Jono would like to share with you our article, Beyond Bunya Dieback, a composite article regarding safeguarding the cultural and ecological connections of the bunya tree to country. The bunya tree, or boni boni, is an amazing experience. They are living sentinels that have endured for at least 200 million years from the Jurassic period. These giants can reach heights over 40 metres and can live for up to 600 years. For thousands of years, they've been central to the culture of the Yinabara, Cubby Cubby and Waka Waka people who gathered for ceremonial nut harvests that united First Nations communities from far and wide. However, we are now witnessing a skeleton forest as these ancient lineages face an unprecedented threat. This is the crisis of bunya dieback. Dieback is caused by soil-borne pathogens, specifically species of Phytophthora, which act as microscopic water molds. These pathogens infect the tree's roots systems, disrupting water and nutrient uptake until the tree rapidly declines. Because the disease is difficult to detect early and has no known cure, mature bunyas can die within a year or two, especially during droughts. This ecological unravelling is worsened by habitat fragmentation and climate change, which weakens these forest giants. The loss is not just biological, it is the erasing of the irreplaceable cultural connection to country. In response to this urgency, a team of 8 contributors produced a composite article offering a new framework for thinking and acting. This work is a direct outcome of the community-led Beyond Bunya Dieback program and symposium, which you can see in the picture on the slide here, which seeks to bridge a gap between scientific research and lived experience. The article contributes 5 key insights for navigating ecological decline. First, we must honour traditional knowledge and custodianship. Second, we must build collaborative, transdisciplinary networks. Third, we should leverage art to evoke the emotions necessary for action. Fourth, we must empower community and business leadership. And finally, we must catalyse awareness into tangible actions. Field of critical forest studies is its shift away from reductivist Western management towards relational ontologies. This field recognises that a forest is not simply a featureless backdrop for human activity and exploitation, but as a sentient being, which has the right to exist. These forests require an ethic of intimate care. Critical forest studies embodies the Maori concept of mahi tihi, working as one, to achieve respectful protection for iconic forest species such as the bunya and the kauri tree. In this picture here, the mycelium network showcases the forest species working together through the sharing of nutrients, energy and signals. Mirroring the mycelium network, critical forest studies showcases the strength of connection that reaches across borders, bringing together First Nations rangers, mycologists, scientists, artists, musicians and educators to co-create knowledge and advocate for the flourishing of forests and all that inhabit them. Reframes biosecurity not as a technical problem but as a relational practice. It shows how environmental education can catalyse local stewardship by transforming simple actions like scrubbing boots into rituals of respect for country and for future generations. By positioning environmental art as a river flowing beneath the bridge of science, the article demonstrates how empathy and imagination can complement technical knowledge, and help drive systematic change. The Beyond Bunya Dieback program illustrates how small community-led initiatives can bypass bureaucratic delays and respond with the urgency our forest demands. We are invited to move beyond reactive problem solving towards proactive place-based stewardship. The bunya has endured for millions of years. We must ensure it does not disappear on our watch through inaction. We encourage you to read the Beyond Bunya Dieback article and join us in giving voice to forest health and prosperity.
Thank you. It was just so wonderful to hear the voices of some of the dear friends that I've made through this process. And particularly, I wanted to give a shout out to Mark Harvey because he was really instrumental in leading us through a Maori informed review process, which was really a fabulous experience. So inviting responses, thinking about maybe not only what you're thinking, but maybe how these videos are making you feel.
I'm gonna just jump in there and say, like, honestly, like it's every video that I've watched is landing really well. But it's what you just said, like the connections that I've made, not by being part of critical forest studies collaboratory, but other things that I'm like picking up just listening to Robin speak as well. And honestly, the one thing that I just heard said has really landed. So this is cool because I'm like now going to go and read it. I've already read the Bunya Dieback, but I'm now going to go and read all the others. But shifting behaviours to become victims in care, I think is something that has just like opened up a different spot. So it's the hard thing. And I also just wrote down about art. Noticing that art opens hearts. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. And lovely to see you.
Yeah, you too.
One last comment, question, feeling?
Well, I'm actually wondering what's a Maori informed review process like.
Do you want to share a little bit about that, Gideon?
Yes. So it's more of a collaborative reading process where, in the spirit of the collaboratory, in the spirit of relational practice, we invited authors to submit a manuscript to the small subgroups led by the co-editing guest editorial team. And so authors for 4 to 5 will submit their manuscript to the group. We'll distribute the manuscripts amongst the authors, and they will both read and then come with their comments and suggestions or reflections on each manuscript. Then the authors go back and revise the manuscript based on the comments and reconvene again. So that's what the approach will do. And so it was prior to the submission feature. So sort of did all the reviews before the authors submitted the manuscripts. So that's the kind of relational approach we used, and it was quite different to the standard double blind reading because we wanted to create a culture of the learning culture, building on each other. That's the approach.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. Yeah, Mark called it a circle review process.
Yes, sir. Yeah, upper circle.
Wonderful. Well, we'll keep going to our final section, forest pedagogies, and Gideon again.
Stand again.
And also because they need to hear in there too. Yeah.
Can you hear me okay?
Can you hear us okay online?
Yes, all good. Thank you.
So articles in this section basically broadly inform us about what we can learn from forests and what forests can teach us. So the authors in this section apply a range of methodologies, philosophies, frameworks to advance our understanding of forests as critical sites and important sites for pedagogy, and also important historical sites. And so basically they're helping us to understand place-based, more than human approaches to addressing, the Anthropocene and the climate crisis and how this can be addressed. A couple of videos about this section, which David will play to us.
Hello, welcome to my article, Literacies in the More Than Human World. My name is Aleksic, and I'm a PhD student at University of Victoria in British Columbia, Canada. Literacies in the More Than Human World, Elementary Age Learners and an Outdoor Learning Community. Invitation up the path. Before traversing academic landscapes, you are invited to walk up to the woods. This brief video is not intended to be a summary of my article, but rather, I wanted you to have a taste of some of the sensory details that words cannot capture. So come along with me. It is a cool morning and we have our warm waterproof layers on. We leave a couple of large wooden buildings behind and notice an empty nature playground up a small grassy hill. Large logs stacked haphazardly, yet they look stable, on a bed of damp wood chips. We walk up the long, gently inclined gravel path towards the woods. There's a hint of fog, and it is raining. We hear human voices in the distance, but they are quiet. We can't quite make out what people are saying. Maybe they're singing? Is it a group? It sounds inviting. We feel the raindrops landing on our waterproof layers, and we trust that they will keep us warm and dry. We look around at the wet earth, at the wet logs, at the wet grass. We notice that we're starting to enter the woods. We also notice birdsong. Let's take a couple moments quietly enjoying the birds as we walk up the path. The gravel is crunchy under our steps, but we're nearing a paved section. As we step into the forest, the path changes and becomes paved. It's a short but steep incline on this paved path, and we are instantly enveloped by tall, majestic trees of the coastal temperate rainforest. Cedars, firs, and hemlocks with endless ferns in between, shades of green and rich browns. We hear voices growing louder with each step. We take a moment to breathe in the fresh oxygen from the woods around us. We feel it enter our nostrils as we release our carbon dioxide in reciprocal exchange. We turn left and find a large circular wooden structure that contains the children and a few adults. We join the group. Thank you for coming on this walk with me. I hope that gives you a bit of a flavor for what inspired my study, and I invite you to read my article. Take care.
In the call for papers, it's noted that critical forest studies is a growing field dedicated to critical, creative, and relationally embedded practices with forests. Our contribution extends the focus to kelp forests in the ocean, and more specifically to our own thinking and co-effective encounters with the Great African Sea Forest in Cape Town, South Africa. While critical forest studies has paid attention to land forests, less is known about the sea forest and the entanglement between territorial and marine forests.
We are interested in how sea swimming and free diving as forms of embodied learning can help us develop alternative practices, pedagogies, and sensibilities in higher education in relation to the planetary crisis. For this article, we scheduled 4 swims throughout August 2025. During these encounters, we documented our swims with photos and video, followed by free writing sessions in nearby coffee shops. Interspersed with the swims, we read marine biology through social science texts about kelp forests and the vegetal turn. Kelp forests grow along 25% of the world's coastlines. They are rich yet vulnerable marine ecosystems, occurring largely in shallow subtidal rocky habitats in temperate regions. Like land forests, the kelp forest is a world where many worlds fit. These biodiverse hotspots support over 1,000 plant and animal species, making them a fecund space for multi-species flourishing.
Kelp is sturdy and able to withstand powerful oceanic surges. However, during storms and fierce tides, kelp can be dislodged, becoming a source of nutrition for other species in the ocean and on the beach. Giant kelp rafts on the beach, known as rack, provide food for land grazers along the rocky shores.
The Great African Sea Forest covers approximately 1,000 kilometers of coastline. As the only giant bamboo kelp forest on our planet, it seems to be one of the few kelp forests that is actually growing. Like all kelp forests, it is foundational and central to the flourishing of its ecosystem. It simultaneously provides food, shelter, protection, and nurseries for many species of fish and invertebrates, as well as a variety of marine mammals. Historically, it was used for subsistence by indigenous coastal dwellers, specifically the Khoisan peoples, also known as struntloopers, and San hunter-gatherers.
Kelp habitats help us understand how we are part of the worldly entanglements, where the Great African Sea Forest does not subscribe to human boundaries. Great African Sea Forest helps us understand the relationship between emplacement and resilience differently. As a sessile organism, kelp's being and becoming is inseparable from its emplacement. Attached to the rock on which it was born, kelp is always reciprocally entangled with other organisms, losing its individuality and blurring the boundaries of specificity.
Cantora proposes a sessile poetics that eschews Western binary logics and hierarchies, unfurling local imaginary that problematize global North notions of territory. Sessile poetics evinces porous and undefined zones that enact situated ways of thinking and foreground crucial global South Great African Sea Forest narratives. Although attached to a substrate, kelp's supple configuration withstands and moves in response to watery rhythms of the ocean. It is important for pedagogy to be both anchored and flexible. A flexible pedagogy responds to the environment, nurtures the whole, whereas a pedagogy of rigidity is siloed and stuck, limiting the flourishing and potential for becoming sea forest.
Learning from kelp as not just objects of manipulation, but participants in the effort to imagine new worlds and envision new futures is an important political gesture. It generates an openness to hesitating, pausing, or even arresting the hegemony of dominant global north forms of logic which permeate academia. This kind of slowing down, which the kelp forests enact so well, contributes to an anti-capitalist praxis, attuning to reparative techniques and methods of care so important for global north-south relations.
I think that's everything.
A couple of reflections or responses to the videos. Everybody to obey.
I was just listening to that one about the kelp bed and think that, hearing you talk about how they would go for a swim in the kelp and then go and sit in a cafe and buy it. Oh my God, that's the dream. Like, immerse ourselves in the ecosystems that we're studying and then write about them with that connection. Because I feel like so often I'm doing work on the environment. I'm sitting over there behind my computer with like a tiny window out to not very green outlook. And so I feel like that in my own work, but I've also been involved in discussions. I was at the Ecological Society of Australia conference last year where they had us a symposium on teaching, and everyone kept saying, we need to get students out in the field, and it's so hard with the university bureaucracy, as it doesn't align with the risk assessments, and it costs too much. And I mean, it's so important for connecting students with the real world, and I guess part of that in fostering their connection with nature and understanding of those ecosystems. Thank you.
Any thoughts from our online colleagues?
We haven't had any things posted in the chat. David, we do have 2 more videos. I'm not sure if you wanted to play them today or not.
Oh, sure. Do we have them in the? I thought that was all that we had in the deck, Peter.
There's 2 more in the playlist. Doug Caro and the Japanese one. Yep. Sorry to throw you out like that. I just wanted to mention them today.
Sure. We might have to play those from YouTube.
Sure.
And I think one of them we might have to cut a little bit short because it was longer than what we had asked for. So
I can put the links in the chat for people and continue the discussion too, if you would prefer. Up to you.
Maybe that would be easier because I think we're pretty close to time. It might be good to give everyone a chance just to have some reflection. And I'm sure there will be more videos as well as people create and add to the playlist.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just extraordinary to see these different perspectives coming together, and the papers behind these videos are also just really amazing. Let's keep the conversation going. Any thoughts about kind of the special issue as a whole and the way that the different sections came together?
I have a comment of like the approach of actually doing videos. I don't know if that would be adequate. I think it was just quite interesting how there were a couple of things. It's like as academics, we're always struggling and fighting and trying to come up with good ideas to make our work more engaging. And I think the videos make it a very easy way to start down that pathway. I was also thinking about how cool it would be if, journals or universities or somehow there could be a structure to actually help reduce those. And then I was noticing the very wide difference between the different videos, like some were a lot more produced, and others were very, very simple, and yet each of them had something important to provide the listener with. So then I wonder, is like now imagine if in the process of making that there was an actual storytelling advice or something that would help you make that engaging for general public, general audience, and how that, like, I've never seen journals say, like, now there's the graphical abstracts starting to emerge, but then it's like, this is basically a video abstract in one way. And then I thought that's very cool. It makes this very unique. And then I just dreamed of imagining if these were actually something that was done more.
So Peter, do you want to say a bit about how AJEE is foregrounding the video playlists as a way to connect the special issues with the broader public?
Yes, thanks, David. So I guess in hosting these launch events, we use video quite a lot, because when you're operating online, it can be a little bit risky to have people doing presentations. It's also a really complex yet lovely to engage with way to be able to see people's heartfelt experience with their papers, and often it's contexted in place, as we've seen a lot of today. So we're really pleased to curate these playlists. We have a few of them now. We'll add to the playlist the recording from today, so it's captured as a repository, a whole, as well as in its parts. We've had video abstracts as part of the AJEE opportunity for a long time, and few of our authors take us up on the opportunity to produce it, other than when we host an event like this, which just gives real purpose, I suppose, to valuing that kind of time commitment. But I think, I'm sure you can see from today what an incredible insight these videos offer. And thank you again to all of the authors who've gone to the trouble of making their manuscript, their article, really accessible through these very different but engaging videos. Thanks, David.
So it would be nice to hear from folks online if there are any questions before we close. I feel like, yeah, we've had some great thoughts and reflections from in the room. Would anyone online like to share some thoughts on what we engaged with today?
Go for it, Susanna.
It wasn't very obvious that I was wavering. Hello, everyone. It's just been such a pleasure to watch all of these and to see some folks who I've met before in the room, and to see the faces of the names of those who have been working on this special issue. Yeah, I just want to say a big thank you to all those who brought it together. For my part, one thing that I really appreciated was in the Bunya Tree Dieback video, the article, the idea, it's a very simple one and a very ordinary one, but the idea of initiating a practice and putting into place a practice rather than thinking of solving a problem. And to me, that was very meaningful, which I'm going to carry forward. So thank you. Thank you very much.
Lovely to see you, Susanna. I miss you.
Hi, Cher.
We have a comment from Spencer. Thank you so much, everyone. Really enjoyed the session from Spencer in Queensland, 15 years old. With a lizard, bird. Is this a frog? Is this a frog?
A frog.
And a shark.
Nice.
Any other thoughts from folks joining online before we finish? It's great from you, Susanna, and yeah, we'd love to hear from anyone else if you'd like to share your thoughts.
A couple were disappointed to have to leave early, David. So Annette said, thanks everyone, great papers, very thought-provoking. Sorry, I have to go to a supervisory training session now. And Russell Tytler says, that has been really interesting. Sorry to have to leave. Spencer made a few comments throughout, thumbs up, saying he really enjoyed it. I think that summarizes. Jelena thanked everyone.
Fantastic.
I think that's us. Oh, and Robin, thanks so much. Oh, there's lots coming in now.
Yeah, here comes the flood.
Shall I read them, David?
If you want to, I think, we're close to finishing, so.
I will read this one from Alex, who was one of our presenters today. Thank you everyone on the editorial team for your hard work, tireless hours and incredible leadership. Thank you for the opportunity to contribute, learn and grow alongside all of you. I can't wait to read the papers and continue the rich learning. And our president of A²E², Lisa Siegel, says, thanks everyone, such a variety of scholarship and so much potential for future play and fun. And a shout out from Jane Merriweather, who also sent a chat. What a generous and generative session. I'm taking away a strong sense of forests as active, co-participants in learning and life. And I love how Indigenous and place-based perspectives, creative method, and educational practices have been brought together so beautifully. Congratulations to everyone involved with this SI. Truly heartwarming and inspiring. Thank you, David and team. Just a shout out, David, Cher, John, Mark, Sarah, Jelena, and Gideon. Fantastic today. It's just been such a treat to engage with you all. Thank you to those who joined online and thank you to those who joined in person. Back to you, David and team.
Thank you, Peter, for all of your extraordinary support, and to the editorial team in AJEE. It's a really extraordinary group of people to work with, so I would recommend doing a special meeting anytime with this group. It's totally the best. So great to work with you. Thanks everyone for coming today, and we look forward to keeping the conversation going. And please reach out if you're interested in the collaboratory. We're always happy to host your projects and continue to create connections and collaborative opportunities for us all to work together through the network. Thanks and see you soon.
Thank you.